Hello and welcome to Discover IPFW. I'm your host, Susan Alderman. April is Autism Awareness Month, and the special education programs at IPFW have been shining a light on the condition all month long. Did you know that autism is now the fastest growing disability category in this country? Or that the Centers for Disease Control now estimate that 1 in 88 children have some form of autism? Joining me tonight to help shed more light on autism and special education we'll start with my immediate left, is Jane Leatherman, Associate Professor, Rama Cousik, and Jeong-IL Cho, both assistant professors in the special education program in the College of Education and Public Policy at IPFW. I want to thank you all for taking time out to join us this evening.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Jane, while autism gets a lot of publicity, there are many people who don't know what it is or are confused about it. Can you and Rama just kind of tell us what is autism?
Yes.
Or is that too big a question?
It's a very big question, but it definitely is something that a lot of people are learning more about because, as you mentioned, it has unfortunately increased. The 1 in 88 diagnosis is definitely something that's really alarming to parents, to teachers.
Can I interrupt real quick?
Yes.
Is it that more children have autism or that our methods of determining have become better? Or is it a combination?
Both. The research will go many different ways. A lot of people are feeling like we're getting better at diagnosing, but then there's some people, and I know when I was in the classroom, we didn't have really that label for the kids. We really had usually they fell under communication disorders or something to that effect. And so for a lot of kids with autism, the three main areas really have to deal with the social issues, interacting with people, communication, and then behavioral issues, because it really can be very challenging for them to be in different situations and really finding their way to fit into our society seems to be a struggle for a lot of them. Yeah.
Do you have anything to add to that, Rama?
Just that it's not clear why the increase is happening.
Yeah.
You know, it could be a combination of factors.
That's like with you hear that incidences of cancer or heart disease or whatever are increasing. Some of it is because habits and stuff of people, you know, you're more susceptible, or the research has found that they can discover it earlier, treat it better. But as with any disease, and autism falls under a disease category.
Disorder.
Are there different levels?
Yes, there are different types of autism. The Center for Disease Control, CDC, classifies them broadly under 3 categories. Autistic disorder, which is people with more the classical type of autism, and then Asperger's syndrome, which could be also people with higher functioning cognitive functioning abilities. And then you have pervasive developmental disorders not otherwise specified. Children with some of the features who don't fit into these classic category of autism.
When the experts, the researchers, the doctors are doing a diagnosis or a child has been referred to them and they're doing an examination, are the tests always right?
Well, the test should be comprehensive. It's not just one test and then boom, you diagnose with autism. It should be a detailed case history and developmental history of the child, and then neurological, psychological, and psychiatric tests. So it's a battery of tests. Comprehensive evaluation of the child's condition should be determined before you can say, yes, the child has autism.
Now, what can or what should parents or even teachers be looking for? What are there signs, or I don't necessarily know if symptom is the proper term, but signs of autism in children?
Signs are probably the best word to sort of describe them. Depends on, again, the research, but usually a child is diagnosed between about 18 months and 3 years of age. Sometimes they may be diagnosed a little later if they actually are just diagnosed as having a developmental delay. Some of the main signs, and again with the younger children, with the toddlers, really are things as something as simple as they don't always respond to their name. You may call their name, but they may not always respond to you. They don't make eye contact, which is one of those things that, we used to just think, oh, they're just, not
They're
listening.
shy. Or,
yes, those types of things. And for some children, that they won't even do pretend play. Like, you give them a baby doll and they feed the baby, that they're not able to understand. And that kind of goes back to that social aspect of it. They don't understand the social interactions. When they get a little bit older, the language for so many parents is a big issue, because some parents will tell you that they actually start saying a few words, but then they actually kind of regress. And that's very scary for parents and very frustrating for parents, because they're thinking, they were giving me two-word sentences, and now all of a sudden they're just looking. So some of those things can be very scary. And one of the things with autism, and Rama mentioned that they're called autism spectrum disorders, that really there's a wide range of how it can affect a person. It may be something as minimal as the student may just have limited eye contact and may have some communication issues, to other students who really just have a hard time being with other people. They prefer to be alone. And I've heard it described as their world is much more exciting than our world. And so that they kind of shut us out, and they say, oh, I'm going into my world. And so for a lot of parents, that can be very frustrating, because they want that interaction with their child. They want them to talk to them, to smile with them. But again, the child doesn't seem to have that interest, or sometimes it may just be that ability.
And I do want to remind the audience that this is a live call-in program. If you have a question for our panel, you can call us here live at the studio at 969-2720. Or if you're outside the Fort Wayne area, you can call us toll-free at 866-969-2720. We'll be happy to take your calls here live in the studio. There's got to be resources out there for families with autistic children, and we have a list that we'd like to put up on the screen so that our audience can see. And if you would just mention what each of these are and maybe what they do.
Yes, definitely. The Hands in Autism is an Indiana-based organization based out of Indianapolis. And they do, their main goal is to distribute information and help families and educators to really find that networking, to really find a way to be together. Autism Speaks is probably the most common, or the one that most people have heard about. They're national. There's also a Fort Wayne chapter. And for the last 5 years, IPFW, the Special Education Program, we have worked with the Fort Wayne chapter of Autism Speaks to co-host their kickoff for the walk, and we've been very involved with that. So wonderful organization with research, with information for parents, networking. The Autism Society of Indiana, they're Indiana-based resources for families, wonderful ways for families to get involved. Second Steps Autism Resource Center is actually a program here directly in Fort Wayne, and so it's wonderful. They've only been in business for about 2 years now, and so they do a wonderful job of providing services, but they're also connected with their store, which is called Sensory Critters, which you can actually get the products that a student may need for that. Indiana Applied Behavioral Analysis Institute, or ABA, that's one of the approved treatments. Well, maybe not a treatment, but one of the approved ways that we have to work with children who have autism. Easter Seals, the ARC, the ARC, everybody's probably familiar with them and basically what they're able to do. And then a couple of the national organizations. NICHE is a wonderful place just to get a lot of good information. And then the CDC, as we've already mentioned, they have a great section on autism and many other disabilities.
And we do have a caller offline who did not want to ask the question on the air. And the question is, does IPFW provide services for its college students? I'm not sure what the caller means. Oh, do we provide services for students who have autism?
Oh, yes, yes. That is actually done through the Services for Students with Disabilities office. Yeah. We, in our program, we are a teacher education program, so we do not specifically do specific services for the students. But yes, the office, and Eric, help me with the name.
Eric Wagenfield.
Thank you, Wagenfield. Sorry, I couldn't remember the last name. But yeah, he's in his office. That would be the place to start.
Okay.
Yeah,
Very
definitely.
Good. Very good. What about other special ed labels, like learning disabilities and things such as that? That again, that the IPFW students have, they would also fall under the students with disabilities, or in some of our academic counseling.
Correct.
We have them in
Learning
our
center.
classes like any other graduate, undergraduate students, except that they may have a letter of modifications or special consideration, like extended time for test, or a take-home exam, you know, or written notes. Supports like that we always provide in consultation with the Disability Services Coordinator.
Okay. Very good. Your department is offering a public workshop on the autism spectrum disorders, and it's coming up, I believe it is next month in May. And Jeong, you're going to
June.
In June.
Yes.
June. Jeong, you're going to tell us about the workshop in June.
Right,
Yes.
right. So we have been offering a workshop since about 2008, I believe. And each year we have at least about 60 to 100 participants. And those are including teachers and also parents and other professionals who are very interested in learning more about autism and related issues. And the workshop will take place, as mentioned, in June, 2 times, on June 17th and June 18th.
And I think we have a graphic that we can put up to show the details as Jeong is talking about them, about the specific workshop as far as, there we go.
Right. So as you can see, the workshop will be offered on June 17th and 18th. Both times the workshop will start at 6:30 and will end at 9 p.m. And the workshop will take place at the IPFW Alumni Center, and the Alumni Center is located right across from Holiday Inn on campus. Please check our website to see where that Alumni Center is located. And please make sure to register for those 2 workshops. We need to prepare enough handouts and related materials for all participants. So it's strongly recommended that you register for the workshop before you come. And also, if you would like to know more about the workshop, please check out our IPFW Continuing Education website, or please contact our special education program. And one thing I also should mention, this workshop is not just designed for teachers or just for parents. It's for anyone who are wanting to know more about autism. And this time we are going to have 4 different speakers. And Rama Cousik is one of our speakers. He's going to provide a comprehensive information about autism. And we have 3 other speakers who are going to talk about parent care, how they can take care of themselves, also about applied behavior analysis. We also have a speaker who is going to talk about all kind of information about insurance waivers.
Very important, very, very
Yes.
important
Yes.
stuff. And now you're also offering a 3-credit graduate level course that's Intro to Working with People with Autism Disorders. And Rama, tell us about that.
Okay, it begins on the 12th of June. It's an intense 7-day course, morning till evening. We discuss various aspects related to education of children with autism. So if you ask me who should take it, it's teachers. It could be special ed teacher or gen ed teacher who work with children with autism, who have students with autism included in their classrooms. And the course content will cover characteristics, current laws to do with children with autism, how to include children with autism to participate meaningfully in the classroom, collaborating with families, and some very scientific evidence-based classroom management strategies, like structuring the environment that helps children with autism. And then they need transition supports we teach how to keep those transition supports in place. And then social skills, alternative communication strategies, functional skills. Depending on where the child with autism is, we design the classroom management strategy to suit that child's needs.
Okay. Now, but special education is much more than autism. Jane, tell us about the program itself, what your majors are, or the majors that are available, or the certifications that are available in the special education program at IPFW.
Yes, our program is what's called a mild intervention licensure program. The state of Indiana offers mild intervention license and also intense intervention license. Our specific program is for the mild disabilities. Autism does come under that label of mild disabilities. Also part of that mild disabilities are learning disabilities, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, mental retardation or cognitive impairments, depends upon which terminology you prefer. Mental retardation is probably the more common term that most people have heard, as well as emotional disabilities, and those unfortunately are one of those areas that's continuing to grow. And so with our program, we offer basically 3 different ways for teachers to obtain that license and or an additional degree. We have the graduate level for the license, which is a 24 credit hour program. We then also have the master's program, which is basically a continuation of those 24 credit hours. You get the content and then you add 4 additional research level courses to obtain the master's degree. And then another component of that is the undergraduate program. We have several of our students who are going through the general ed program to be either an elementary school teacher or a secondary level teacher, and they can take additional courses, 21 additional credit hours, to obtain the same mild intervention license. And just 3 years ago, we're very excited that we've started a wonderful collaborative partnership with IU South Bend. The intense intervention program, there just aren't as many, there's just not as much of a need for as many of those teachers. And so with that, we are working with South Bend. We average about 6 to 8 students a year. But then we can offer, in collaboration with South Bend, we can also offer the intense intervention license. So if you ask us if we offer both courseworks, yes, we can help a student get both the mild intervention license as well as the intense intervention license.
You mentioned ADHD.
Correct.
I think that's right.
Right.
And now, this is something that you didn't hear about back probably when we were in elementary or middle school or high school, or maybe even college for that matter. How has this come about, I guess is the way to ask it.
Yeah, and that's a very good question. ADHD is considered a neurobehavioral disorder. That's a mouthful. In that it usually is diagnosed in childhood, somewhere around age 3 up to 2nd or 3rd grade. Kind of depends on the student and whether they're more active or whether it's more of a focus issue that they actually have. It started out being ADD, attention deficit disorder, but that hyperactivity is a component. There's 3 different levels. Basically, there's the deficit part that talks about the inability to focus. Then there's also the hyperactivity part. You can also have a combo, which is kind of interesting, that you have issues with focusing, but you also have some of that inattention. You have a little bit more of the hyperactivity. I've heard people describe it as the child seems like they're always on the go. They're just constantly moving because they've just got a lot of energy, and they haven't sort of learned how to control that energy for a lot of them.
Does some of that just come with maturity? And you know, I don't mean to be sexist, but you used to hear, well, that's just boys being boys.
Yes.
You know, that's how boys play that way, or whatever. Is that just old wives' tales, or?
There is some truth to it, actually, because boys are diagnosed with ADHD. Depends on the research. Some people say 4 times as often, others say 5 times as often. Part of it really does have to do with because it's a neurobehavioral disorder, it really has to do with the chemical imbalance in the brain. And so with that, it's like one part of the brain is constantly on and the other side of the brain is trying to catch up with it. And so it's hard for a lot of people to focus.
Does society contribute to that in a way, in the fact that there are so many more demands on everyone's time, not just the parents trying to spend one-on-one time with the child, or the children have so many different stimuli now with TV. You know, it's so easy, park the child in front of the TV while mom gets her work done, dad gets his work done.
Definitely.
Video games. Is there a correlation?
There depends on, again, the research that you read. There's a lot of research that does say that we are overstimulating our children, where we used to require them to sort of pretend play and come up with their own games. Now it's like, here's the Xbox, here's the video game, here's your iPod, you know. And so for a lot of kids and society, it does seem like we are constantly keeping them busy. And there is some research that says because we are bombarding them, as it were, with constant stimulation, they're really having to work to really focus on that. And that can be very hard for some kids.
Now, ADHD, does that fall under a learning disability?
Actually, legally, ADHD falls under what's called other health impairments. But there is a connection between ADHD and a learning disability. They do have a lot of similar characteristics. And there's a term called comorbidity. And the average right now is about 40% of children who have ADHD also may have a learning disability. And again, that there are several of those characteristics that can overlap. And so it can be a little disconcerting for some of the kids.
And Jeong, you mentioned a little while ago, talking about the workshop, that a couple of the different areas that are going to be that will be looked at are children with emotional disabilities or intellectual disabilities. Tell us about that a little bit, please.
Right, since Jane just mentioned about ADHD, so there is in the federal disability category list, there is no disability like ADHD, but just she mentioned other health impairment is the category that covers all those different disabilities, including ADHD. But often students with severe ADHD, they are receiving services under emotional and behavioral disorders. So in Indiana, we are using not that term, but often emotional disability, just like you mentioned, or emotional handicap. But in the Federal Special Education Law, IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, the term used there is emotional disturbance. So you can clearly see the clear connection between behavior and emotion when it comes with emotional disturbance or emotional disability. There are two extreme behaviors problematic with students with emotional and behavioral disabilities. One thing is behavioral excess, and another one is behavioral deficit. So when it comes with behavioral access, we talk about internalizing behaviors, also extreme externalizing behaviors. Often teachers are noticing more on externalizing behaviors because such behaviors are interfering with instruction, but internal behaviors are also very important. I will give you some examples of internalizing problematic behaviors. Some examples can be extremely shy and withdrawn and lonely and very anxious. And some kids are experiencing hypochondria. That means there are some children out there who feel like sick all the time. So those are examples of internalizing problematic behaviors. Externalizing problematic behaviors are including extreme hyperactivity, impulsivity, very aggressive. Also, they're not that compliant with what teachers are instructing them to do. So that's about behavioral excess. Also, students with emotional and behavioral disabilities are experiencing behavioral deficit. That means they are
They just don't react.
that can be,
Can
but
be it?
it's more about their lack of social skill.
Okay.
They're lacking extreme social skill, especially pro-social skills, how to help friends, how to volunteer to benefit others. So they are lacking pro-social behaviors. Those two are extreme behaviors of students with emotional and behavioral disorders.
Okay, and with that, I'm going to have to say that if the audience has any more questions, they can go to the website for the special education program. It's ipfw.edu/special-education, and you can get much more information about all these different things that we've talked about. And with that, I have to say that we are out of time for this edition of Discover IPFW. I want to thank my guests, Jane Leatherman, Rama Cousik, and Jeong-IL Cho from the Special Education Program at IPFW for joining me. And I want to thank you, the audience, for watching. We'll see you next month for another edition of Discover IPFW.